a group of 40-year-old girlfriends decided to have a reunion and get together, and they were meeting in their 10-year reunion where they should meet for dinner. It was agreed that they're 40 years old now, they should meet at the Ocean View restaurant because the waiters there were really good looking. 10 years later, they're 50 years old now. The group once again discussed where to go, and they agreed again on the Ocean View restaurant because the food there was good and the wine selection was superb. Another 10 years later, 60 years of age, the group once again discussed where they should go, and they decided again on Ocean View restaurant because they could eat there in peace and quiet, and the restaurant had a beautiful view of the ocean. 10 years later, at 70 years of age, they again decided where to go, and Ocean View came up again because the restaurant there had wheelchair accessibility, and they even had an elevator. I said that at our homeowners meeting last week. I live in the third floor in a little condo, an old condo, and they were going to replace stairway, and I said, we need an elevator. They laughed too. 10 years later, at 80 years of age, the group discussed where they should go for dinner, and again, it was agreed upon that they should meet at the Ocean View restaurant because they had never been there before. You know you're laughing because you identify with this. There's a brief article, I'm kind of expanding on this brief article about, it's entitled Semi-Elderly. Semi-Elderly. Not too sure what category that is in. I think I'm in just plain elderly, but the semi-elderly means you grew up in the 40s, 50s, studied in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, dated in the 60s and 70s, got married and or discovered the world in the 70s and 80s, stabilized a bit in the 90s, got wiser in the year 2000, and went forward through 2010 and further. Turns out we have lived through many and actual centuries and 2 different millennia. We've gone from the telephone, anyone remember a telephone? With an operator for long distance calls to video calls anywhere in the world. We've gone from slides to YouTube, from vinyl records to online music. I guess vinyl's coming back. Handwritten letters to email and WhatsApp. I don't have that one. From live matches on the radio to black and white TV, and then to HD TV. We went to Blockbusters, and now we watch Netflix. We got to know the first computers, punch cards, diskettes, and now we have gigabytes and megabytes, and hand on our cell phones or iPads. We wore shorts, Bermuda shorts, throughout our childhood, and then later long pants. We rode skates, tricycles, bicycles, mopeds, gasoline or diesel cars, and now we ride hybrids or electric. We've gone through a lot, and what a great life we've had. They could describe us, and I haven't heard this term, but this article said, describe this generation, I guess, what we are now, as exennials. People who were born in the world of the 50s, who had an analogy, childhood, and digital adulthood. We are kind of a you've seen it all generation, and literally gone through and witnessed more than any other in every dimension of life. It is our generation that has literally adapted to change like maybe any other in history. But it does not stop. Life is a task that we do ourselves every day. When we look, life simply, and I do believe this is true, goes faster and faster as we get older and older. Now, some of you are nodding your heads. I don't know why that is, but it is. But we do not stop doing something that's important, hopefully. Do not stop keeping, friends and family, loved ones by our side. The day-to-day is today. We're no longer at an age that we really said, I'll just do it tomorrow. Hopefully, we can do things now. There's still time. Do today when you thought you should do tomorrow, because we're always together, united, brothers and sisters, friends, children of God. Now, I'm filling in for I said new chaplain. It's been 10 years, I think. 10 years from my retirement. It's the year 2024. It's almost unimaginable to think that I've been retired for that long. So I'm 75 years old, and next month in October, I will be 76. On October 19th, just in case anyone wants to buy me something on October. I didn't mean that to be funny. There is someone down in nursery or something if you need that at any point in time. Downstairs, there should be someone down there. So I'll be 76. Ashley, you don't have to buy me anything, because I really am at that age that I don't need anything else. I do not need any more new clothes. I have to get rid of some of those clothes in the closet that have somehow shrunk in the closet. I don't know how that happens. Must be the humidity around here. Now, I would like a new Corvette, though. If you all want to get together and pool in, $1,000 each, I think we'll make it. However, I really don't mind getting old. As they say, it's better than the alternative. I feel like I do not need to prove myself anymore, or as much, maybe I should say. I did a lot of school. I tried to make this chapel viable and relevant. I got here in 78, the early spring of 78, and it was me and me. There wasn't anyone else in this community connected with the chapel in any way, and they really didn't have a worship service, but somehow they had pews and a pulpit. I thought, well, maybe I'll start doing some things. So, I don't feel the same pressure. Psychologically, I'm okay, or relatively okay. Now, physically, that's another matter. It seems that my wife Carolyn and I, between the two of us, spend most of our time during the week either going to the grocery store or doctor offices. There's very little in between. And this brings me up to the point that I want to make this morning. Like many of us around here, I have a couple new parts, a new knee and a new hip recently, and I need another new knee as soon as possible. When I was in the hospital overnight 3 months ago, Carolyn got up in the middle of the night and tripped and fell and fractured her shoulder. I know what you're thinking. If you're going to do that, it's good to do it in the hospital. Right after this, we were supposed to lay low and not even drive. Somehow people learned of our situation and brought us whatever we needed, or particularly food. We weren't able to go out to the grocery store. But we were able to even socialize with them at home. That went on for a week or 10 days, maybe even more. It was most helpful. We were overwhelmed at the selfless generosity from so many people we knew and a few we did not know. It was really something. Much of this was done through the organization called Pathfinders. Now, I'm going to mention some names. I have to thank Debbie and Gary Kreutzer, Maureen Callahan, Rudy and Karen Scheidt, Elaine Bonds, Barbara Bloomsma, Jill Pisani, my niece, Sandy Simpson, Joyce Harris, Macy Morris, Martha Wersch, Connie Tadoon, and Carolyn's daughter, Lee Etheridge. And then there were others who said, well, if I had known, I would have helped as well. To us, this was an incredible act of giving and selflessness. People were preparing food and driving over to bring it to us and walk up the 2 other flights of stairs. We were so grateful. And in many ways, we would ask for them to stay and visit for a while. Visiting with the people was as helpful as getting the food. Giving and serving and helping selflessly is really an incredible phenomenon. It is what life really is all about. Jesus said, if you do this to the least of these, my brethren, you do it unto me. Albert Schweitzer, who we acknowledged last Sunday, said that to be truly happy is to truly serve. When Dr. Lachlan Foro of the Schweitzer Institute heard of my title and subject for this week, he sent me another quote from Schweitzer. He's got all the quotes about Schweitzer. Lachlan can do this for about any subject. Anyway, he sent this quote from Albert Schweitzer, which is, know yourself. Know thyself must also include honestly recognizing our own shortcomings, failures, and even limitations. And maybe even worse, our own tendencies that we can sometimes be hurtful or aggressive or even sometimes cruel. And that honesty about ourselves is a driving force for us to realize that we can do better when we recognize that sometimes we make mistakes. And it can help us grow in our understanding and even compassion, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, and qualities that he can even realize within himself, said Albert Schweitzer. The worst person who won the Nobel Peace Prize and helping all these people in Africa and setting them in a hospital, all he did, recognizes his own failures at times. And we only know and honestly know ourselves through our actions. Now, talk about selfless actions. We remembered a few days ago 9/11 and what people did to save people in 9/11. You talk about selflessness and caring. The greatest act ever. People lost their lives to help others. Jesus said, nothing's greater than giving up your life. I want to do the same, but as Schweitzer reminds us, we also need to contract the fact that we can be selfish at times. I do want a Corvette. If not just selfish, but recognize our shortcomings, limitations, and assertiveness. Now, when I say to be conscious of some of those things, that of course does not apply to me, because I do not have any negative shortcomings or tendencies. Do I, Carolyn? Okay, I guess I do because I just lied. I do hope to be kind, considerate, and compassionate, my intention, but when I get behind the wheel of a car and drive just about anywhere and observe the behavior of other car drivers, I am not kind, considerate, or compassionate. I become a critical and voiceful vigilante. I am yelling at other inconsiderate drivers on a regular basis because it happens very often. Just driving down 80. How can they go that fast? Look at that guy making that turn right there. Look at him buzz through the roundabout without stopping when I'm in there. Carolyn is smiling. She is really after me. She gets so upset with me. At my constant yelling at other drivers who make such bad decisions. I know I'm really not supposed to, and remain calm and not be concerned about all these other people's bad driving habits, but I kind of like criticizing them. I sometimes wish when I see bad drivers weaving in and out and going 20 miles over the speed limit, I wish I could be a policeman or sheriff or a highway patrol, and I'd sound my siren and pull him over and put him in jail right away. That's what I want to do. Now, that comment reminds me of a very brief conversation I had with a security guard at what's called the Lynchburg, Virginia airport, where we go in the winter, where Carolyn is from. He was a retired highway patrol officer. And I asked him about what he considered to be one of the primary concerns and challenges on the road and what causes so many accidents. He answered right away, one word: selfishness. Selfish drivers, just thinking of themselves. They cause accidents and do not consider other people. They simply care about themselves and risk the lives of others for their own sake to get where they're going as quickly as possible. And of course, such driving causes serious accidents. Just look at the Denver news every morning. 3 or 4 accident reports every morning. Selfishness shows up on the highway. To be perfectly fair, selflessness also shows up on the highway as well, such as when someone lets you in when you have to merge on the ongoing lane. Of course, we can think of many examples of gracious drivers and bad drivers. Is it correct to say that we are capable of such acts of selflessness and selfishness at the same time? And it does show up. On a practical level, Lexi Potamkin has written a book simply entitled Know Yourself. And it's an excellent book, and she talks about the practical 4 virtues of the heart, which she gained from Buddhism, can only help us live happier, kinder, and more balanced lives. The virtues are, very simply, loving kindness or benevolence, called metta, compassion, called karuna, empathetic joy, called mudita, and equanimity, called upekaha. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but just simple to repeat. Go out thinking, we know this, but we often have to be reminded of myself. I said myself. Loving kindness, compassion, empathy, equanimity. She concludes her chapter on embracing the virtues of the heart. Offering loving kindness, compassion, empathy, and equanimity to ourselves and others is a selfless practice that will change our lives and even our world. In her chapter entitled The Buddhist Approach to Happiness, she states, the evidence is clear. The more we are able to shift our preoccupation from self to others, the happier we will be. We know scientifically that greater happiness comes from love and compassion and helping others. Compassion, of course, means co-passion. Passion is to suffer. Co-passion is to suffer with, alongside. The Buddhist scholar Shantidevita said, whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from our desire only ourselves to be happy. The Dalai Lama simply said, my religion is kindness. Toward the end of Lexi Potamkin's excellent book, she states in summary, find whatever makes your soul sing and enjoy it. Find new things to appreciate, experience, and observe. Focus on taking care of yourself as a daily part of life. Once you take care of yourself, of course, you can take care of others and contribute to the world and in your community. So that's the simple message. Schweitzer simply said, to be truly happy is to truly serve. I want to simply state this morning, the best way to love yourself is to love others. And finally, I came up with this in the middle of the night when I woke up somewhat abruptly, which I do a couple times a night. The most selfish thing we can do is to be selfless. Can I say this again because it comes in the middle of the night? The most selfish thing we can do for ourselves is to be selfless. I guess that's where I came up with selfishness is selflessness, or selflessness is selfishness. I'm hoping I've created a new bumper sticker. When we care for others, we are caring for ourselves. The best way to love yourself is to love others. The best thing we can do is to be selfless. The Epistle of John, we read these great words. God is love, and the one who abides in love abides in God, and God abides in them. In this is love perfected with us, that we may have confidence for the day of judgment, because as God is, so are we in this world. There's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. In this commandment we have from God, that the one who loves God should love God and your neighbor as yourself. Of course, in the Gospel of Matthew, whatever you wish that people would do to you, do so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. There's a reason why it's called the Golden Rule. You know, and I had, when we think of the dark night of the soul, the stage of final and complete purification, I often go out in the middle of the night, or when I wake up and come up with some titles, I go out and look at the dark sky and sometimes the moon and the stars. And sense of the dark night of the soul is a good thing. I mean, we can think it's a time when we're struggling, but it's also a time of letting go. It's unselfing. There's another word, unselfing, and the surrender to the hidden purposes of the divine will. Eckhart Tolle said it is a kind of rebirth, which means a kind of death. What dies in us is the egoic sense of self and the rebirth of our truer self, which is giving to others. One of my favorite teachers, I conclude with this, in my high school called Minnehaha Academy, Mr. Nordstrom wrote a manuscript entitled Why I Don't Go to Church Anymore. He had 3 primary points. In a grand abbreviation, they are: all evil has its source in uncontrolled self-centeredness. All evil is uncontrolled centeredness. 2, God is love. Those who abide in love abide in God. Period. 3, the path to holiness lies through the following the golden rule. To follow it is to fulfill Christ's counsel to love others as we love ourselves. So this is the basic text, my simple message today, and I hope throughout the past. I'm pretty sure it simply came from the basic biblical theme of our Torah and gospel. Love God, your neighbor as yourself. So now that I'm retired in my old age, I'm getting tired now, and I'm sure I don't know what else can be said. So, amen.